After the car accident, I was reborn. The absurd part is that I was actually picked up by a wicked dragon and kept as a pet. The wicked dragon. Shake hands. I raised my left paw. Shake right hand. I raised my right paw. Sit, spin, roll over. Screw you, I quit. The world after rebirth seemed magnified several times over compared to my original one. In front of the evil dragon, I am tiny, only the size of his palm. Like a little chipmunk before a human, now he is placing a roasted sweet potato. Taller and larger than me, into the small nest he just built for me out of a cardboard box. The evil dragon has a pair of red eyes, his pupils vertical like a cat's, with deep black scales covering his body. When he slightly opens his mouth, I can see the sharp fangs inside. When we first met, he killed 2 rats with a single swipe of his claw. They had been trying to drag me into their hole to eat me, with a fierce and menacing appearance, yet now he's looking at me eagerly. His ears drooping obediently. I guess he probably hopes I'll accept his offering. Well, considering he saved me and I'm already starving to the point of my chest touching my back, I've decided to give this sweet potato, bigger than me, a try. Aside from its bizarrely large size, this sweet potato looks quite ordinary, similar to those in my original world. The sweet potato was still steaming, and I gingerly touched it. Ouch! It's too hot. I quickly pulled my hand back in surprise. The dragon tilted its head and blinked at me, as if asking, "Don't you like it?" He carefully touched my head with his fingers. Growl, growl, growl. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Forgive me, I really don't understand dragon language. The evil dragon fell silent for a moment, then suddenly had an epiphany, puckering his large dragon mouth to blow on the sweet potato. The wind was so strong that I fell flat on my butt, my hair flying wildly, feeling like my hairline had receded quite a bit. The dragon pinched the back of my collar between his thumb and forefinger. Lifting me up, he took a small spoon, scooped a bit of sweet potato, and held it out to me. I took a bite from the spoon. It was sweet, no different from the ones in my original world. Purr, the dragon above me made a strange sound. I looked up to see its eyes curved into 2 crescent moons, probably laughing. The next second, a cold, mechanical voice abruptly exploded in my mind. Ding, Lucas's favorability +1, host. Please continue your efforts. When the target's favorability reaches full value, a hidden quest will be triggered. Upon completing the hidden quest, the host can return to their original world and fulfill 1 wish. I froze for a moment, but fortunately calmed down quickly. So, I was actually bound to a system. Knowing there was hope of returning home, I couldn't help but feel elated. But who is Lucas, this dragon? As I was pondering, the evil dragon scooped another small piece of sweet potato with a spoon and offered it to me. To test my guess, I obediently accepted the dragon's feeding, then nuzzled against his somewhat rough claws. The dragon's claws trembled slightly, and sure enough, the next moment, I heard, ding, Lucas's favorability +2, awesome. This dragon is indeed my target to conquer, and it seems quite naive, making it easy to win over. For the rest of the night, I worked hard to act cute and affectionate, playing the role of an adorable pet to the best of my ability. Everything went smoothly, and I managed to raise Lucas's favorability to 20 in just 1 night. Satisfied, I fell asleep in the little nest he made for me. The next morning, I woke up groggily to the sound of Lucas getting up. Before I was fully awake, the dragon poked my head with his finger. Little one, awake now? I instinctively nodded. Yeah, then, I was stunned. Who was talking to me? My drowsiness was completely scared away. I jerked my head up and saw a delicate, slender face. The early morning sunlight fell on the boy's jet black hair, casting a faint golden hue. He was tall and lean, with a thin scar running across the end of his eyebrow. He gazed at me with a cool expression. Those crimson eyes felt eerily familiar. As my eyes traveled upward, I noticed 2 small dragon horns atop his head. The tip of his left horn was slightly chipped, just like that wicked dragon's. My heart skipped a beat. Could this guy actually be the dragon who picked me up back then? I stared unblinkingly at Lucas. The corner of his lips twitched as he packed the textbooks on the desk into his bag, then asked, "Hungry?" Lucas's voice was incredibly pleasant, deep and mellow, each tone falling into my ears and making my heart itch with longing. Baby birds, when hungry, lift their heads, chirping with their beaks wide open, waiting to be fed. You're just like that now. He opened the drawer and took out an exquisite tin box. Lifting the lid revealed a neat row of bear-shaped cookies inside. Lucas took out a piece and tucked it into my arms. "Can you eat this?" I said. "Yes," but Lucas's expression clearly told me he couldn't understand what I was saying. At that moment, the system's prompt sounded in my mind. "Host, Lucas can't understand you now. The reason you can understand his words now is a reward for raising his favorability to 20 last night. Now you have 3 choices." At the same time, an interface appears before me. "Please select how you want Lucas to hear your voice. A. Rar rar rar. B. Meow meow meow. C. Hoo hoo hoo." I chose A, and under Lucas's eager gaze, I took a bite of the bear's ear, then cheered to show how much I liked it. To Lucas, it probably sounded like, "Ow ow," the system said. "Go for it, host. Work hard to increase the favorability points, and you'll unlock more vocal tones." I was speechless. What's the point? Lucas was in a good mood. With a smile, he told me to take good care of the house before slinging his bag over his shoulder and heading out. Wait, if he leaves, how am I supposed to raise his favorability? Besides, everything in this world is 100 times larger to me. If I encounter rats or stray cats again, I'd be gnawed to the bone, wouldn't I? I hopped and jumped around, making noise, then cried out, "Ow, ow, 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 don't go, don't go." Lucas heard the commotion and stopped. Turning back to look at me. "What's wrong?" I quickly spread my arms, making a gesture asking for a hug. Lucas sighed helplessly. As soon as he walked back to the desk and reached out to me, I pounced and tightly hugged his thumb. "Ow, ow, ow, take me, want to come with me?" I nodded vigorously, tilting my head up to gaze at him with shimmering eyes. Lucas rubbed my head with his thumb. "I really can't do anything with you, with that." He carefully cupped me in his palm and tucked me into the pocket on the left side of his chest. Here, close to his heart, I could feel his strong heartbeat and the firm, muscular contours of his chest. I'm absolutely certain this dragon must have an amazing figure, through the thin fabric. Lucas's body warmth transmitted over, so warm and comfortable, I couldn't resist and nuzzled my head against him. "Happy now?" he asked. I responded by hugging him and giving his muscles a little squeeze. Lucas said affectionately, "Silly thing." I was speechless, probably similar to what we usually call a silly dog. Lucas was off to school, and I secretly sighed. Apparently, even dragons can't escape the grind of education. He had just entered the classroom when a blonde with red horns waved at him. "Lucas is here." The blonde was holding a bag of candy. Lucas walked over and said, "Let me try some of that too." Didn't Lucas hate overly sweet things the most? "Since when did you start eating candy?" "It's for my little pet." Lucas unwrapped the candy and handed me an orange fruit hard candy into the pocket. I reached out with both hands to catch it, not forgetting to nuzzle his fingertips with my cheek. The dragon's fingers were slightly cool, carrying a faint scent of tobacco. He chuckled softly. Little thing knows how to please a dragon. Sure enough, the next moment was, ding, Lucas favorability +1. Wow, this dragon is way too easy to win over. Holding a basketball-sized candy, I nestled in Lucas's shirt pocket, nibbling away contentedly and feeling utterly blissful, when unexpectedly, I locked eyes with a pair of yellow ones. Those pupils, like Lucas's, were also vertical slits, but now they were pressed extremely close, as if desperate to stick to me. What made me most uncomfortable was the undisguised amusement in those eyes. As if I were some novel little toy, I instinctively tightened my grip on Lucas's shirt. Lucas sensed my fear and apprehension, extending his hand to shield the collar of his shirt. "Why won't Lucas let us see?" came the voice of that blonde guy from earlier. "My little pet is shy, can't stand being stared at." Lucas's seat was by the window in the last row of the classroom. This school was built on a cliff, and through the clear glass, one could overlook the entire Dragon Kingdom. Lucas was very attentive in class. His tall nose bridge supported a pair of glasses, making him look extremely refined. A modestly styled pure black quill was held in his long, slender fingers, swiftly writing words I couldn't understand. "What are you looking at?" Lucas's deep voice sounded above my head as he pressed his thumb against my scalp and pushed me aside. "You're blocking my writing." I sat on the desk, smoothing out the hair he had tousled, and looked at him with a pout. Lucas whispered to me, "Bored, want to cause trouble?" He pulled a tissue from his pocket and gently wiped my mouth. you've got sugar all over your face, just like the textbook said. What does it mean to be described by the textbook? Perhaps sensing my confusion, Lucas tapped the black and white image in the textbook with his right index finger. Here, look at this. The drawing was somewhat abstract, but one could vaguely make out a human shape. As if to answer my question, Lucas continued, this is you. The textbook says that primitive micro-humans are extremely small in size, with insufficient brain capacity, stupid and easy to capture. They can be used as emergency rations. Damn textbook, ruined my life. The best sleep I've ever had in my life was during class, and even now after being reborn, it's still the same. The voice of Professor Long lecturing on the podium hit my eardrums like a monotonous chant. The weather today was gloomy, with a light drizzle, perfect for sleeping. I sat cross-legged on the desk and soon began nodding off like a pecking chick. As my consciousness drifted, I tilted sideways and suddenly lurched toward the wooden desk. Instinctively, I let out a whimper, but Lucas reached out and caught me firmly. Nestled in Lucas's palm, I wriggled a bit to find a comfortable position, then hugged his thumb with both hands and promptly fell into a deep, contented sleep. Lucas rubbed his thumb against my chubby cheek, and I protested with my eyes closed, grumbling, ow, ow, stop that. In my drowsy state, I heard Lucas chuckle softly, ha, still so feisty. I slept straight through until noon when classes ended. Lucas and the others had no afternoon classes. That blonde guy, I learned his name was Leo, leaned in mysteriously as soon as class was over and asked, Lucas, are we going to David's place tonight? Without pausing as he packed his books, Lucas replied indifferently, no. He stretched and clenched the fingers of his left hand, then made a fist and circled his wrist. Hiss, Leo asked, what's up, Lucas? Lucas replied nonchalantly, his tone lazy. My hand fell asleep from being used as emergency food. After school, Lucas wasn't in a hurry to go back. He stopped by the library to borrow a book titled On How to Fatten Up Your Original Microhuman. Plump and sturdy, does that make it more chewy when eaten? I hung lifelessly from Lucas's pocket as he skimmed through the pages at lightning speed. In the silence so profound you could hear a pin drop. A few loud noises suddenly erupted. Grrrr, gurgle. I was so frightened that I shrank entirely into Lucas's pocket, my cheeks burning with embarrassment as I pressed my hands against my belly. The few dragons studying in the library heard the noise and all turned to look. Lucas was speechless. He glared back fiercely, scaring the curious dragons into lowering their heads. He raised his hand and gave a light pat to the small lump bulging in his chest pocket. That pat just happened to land right on my butt. Under the overcast sky, Lucas spread his deep black wings, dark as night, and plunged downward through the fierce wind toward the cliff. I curled up in his pocket, closing my eyes and gripping the shirt on his chest with all my strength. Lucas moved at incredible speed, skimming past the jagged cliffs before soaring toward the heart of the city. The sensation was 100 times more thrilling than any roller coaster. When Lucas landed again and pulled me out of his pocket, I was already dizzy and disoriented, hanging limply in his hand. With his other hand, he pinched my cheek between his thumb and forefinger, giving it a rough squeeze. Can't handle it already, just like the books say. Delicate and fragile, not easy to raise. I lifted my gaze and gave him a weary glance. Falling into water can kill you, bumping into things can kill you, being too cold can kill you, being too hot can kill you, starving can kill you, overeating can also kill you. Lucas rubbed the top of my head and teased, tell me, isn't that useless? I bit his index finger with a gore. This dragon is so annoying. He's almost petting me bald. Oh, still angry. I won't buy you snacks if you keep biting. For the sake of food, I reluctantly let go. Seeing Lucas about to stuff me into his pocket again, I quickly protested. The space there was too cramped, making my back ache. I raised my hand and pointed at the top of his head. Lucas glanced at me. Want to ride up? I nodded eagerly. Pushing your luck, I widened my eyes, staring at him with a pitiful look. Lucas was speechless. You're unbelievable. Saying this, Lucas still lifted me onto the top of his head. He didn't forget to remind me, hold on to my horns tight. If you fall, I won't take responsibility. Lucas's jet black hair was soft and fluffy, with two small black horns peeking out from his tousled locks. It's just a shame that one of his horns was broken by a third. The broken part was uneven, prickly to the touch. For some reason, my heart felt heavy, and I was very uncomfortable. Lucas took me to a bakery in the city center, and from a distance, I could already smell the aroma of freshly baked bread. I tugged at his hair and pointed at the steaming hot egg tarts just out of the oven. Ow, 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 this one, ow, ow, that one. Lucas curled his index finger and flicked it against my forehead. Got it. No need to rush, after selecting the bread and paying. Lucas tore off a small piece from the steaming loaf and handed it to me, ravenously. I reached out to take it, but just as I was about to touch it, Lucas pulled his hand back. The force of my lunge made me lean too far forward, nearly toppling off his head, but he quickly extended his other hand to steady me. I grumbled discontentedly. Why tease me like that? Lucas, however, lifted the small piece of bread to his lips and gently blew on it twice. It's hot, let me cool it for you. I froze. Why is it that Lucas, this dragon as black as coal, seems to be shining so brightly in my eyes? First, Lucas conquered my stomach, and now he's conquered my heart. When Lucas took me to the tailor's shop to have clothes custom-made to fit my size, I was willing to call him the best dragon mom in the world. The tailor was a red fire-breathing dragon, wearing a gray-brown knitted cap on his head and a pair of reading glasses perched on his nose, his brown-yellow eyes slightly cloudy. Lucas called him Uncle James, and the two seemed quite familiar with each other. Uncle James measured my dimensions with a soft tape, and I cooperatively raised my arms and legs. He asked Lucas, "What kind do you want to make?" Lucas glanced at me. "Something cute, I guess." After a moment of thought, he added, "Make a few more for each season. The book says these little things need to stay clean, or they can get sick easily." Got it. Uncle James measured quickly. And as soon as the task was done, I happily threw myself into Lucas's arms. I nuzzled my face against him, and he gently smoothed my fur. "Come pick it up in 3 days." "But Lucas, since when did you start raising such a delicate little thing?" Hearing this, Lucas didn't stop smoothing my fur. He extended his index finger to scratch under my chin, and I lifted my head, purring contentedly. "Since I picked it up and can't just throw it away, might as well keep me company." Uncle James stroked the white beard on his pointed chin and chuckled. "I still say a dog is better, hardier and smarter." He beckoned, "Come here, Money, let's put on a show for Lucas." The Money Uncle James referred to was a chubby husky, currently sprawled at the door stretching dopily. I looked down at it with a sidelong glance, thinking Uncle James must be getting old and dim-sighted. How could this thing possibly be smarter than me? He called out loudly, and Money lazily walked over. Uncle James tore open a pack of beef jerky and commanded, "Raise your left hand." Money lifted its left paw. "Raise your right hand." Money raised his right hand, both hands up. I sneered, "Is that all? Just this?" I tugged at Lucas's shirt sleeve, signaling him to go show them what a true champion looks like. Lucas understood my meaning. His eyebrows lifted, his eyes brimming with brilliance. He said, "My little one can do these things too," his tone overflowing with unconcealable pride. "Come on, sweetheart, raise your right hand." I raised my right hand high. "Spin around." I nimbly turned in a circle. "Kiss." As he said this, Lucas lowered his head and brought his face close to mine. The tailor's shop was lit with lamps, and Lucas was bathed in the warm yellow glow. His profile was sharp and angular, and in the light, I could see the fine down on his face. Beauty is bewitching. After hesitating for 2 seconds, I planted a smacking kiss on him. He tapped the tip of my nose and said, "Quite obedient, aren't you?" I averted my gaze, my face burning hot enough to boil an egg. Woof woof woof. At this moment, a few barks were heard, with Money raising its head defiantly. Uncle James chuckled with narrowed eyes. "Oh, looks like we've got a challenger." Getting excited, he pulled a small ball from his pocket and tossed it. "Here, Money, catch." With a nimble leap, Fatty Ha caught the small ball firmly in its mouth. It curled its lips and gave me a provocative grin. TCH. I pulled a piece of fruit hard candy from Lucas's pocket and held it out in front of him. Lucas asked, "Do you want me to throw it for you to catch too?" I nodded heavily, looking at him firmly. Lucas gave me a worried glance, but ultimately tossed the candy toward me. He deliberately threw the candy right in front of me, so I could easily catch it with just a slight lift of my hand. But while I calculated the exact landing spot of the small ball, I didn't account for the sweat in my palm. My hand slipped, and with a crisp snap, the candy hit me right on the forehead. I let out a yelp, crouching down while clutching my head. It felt like my skull had shattered. Lucas was startled and quickly lifted my bangs to examine the spot carefully, his slender brows furrowed, and after a moment, he said guiltily, "It's red, money, woof." The tone was upbeat, quite cheerful. I turned my head. Was that dumb dog actually smiling? Also, why was I lowering myself to do something this stupid? What's wrong with me, competing with a dog? As he was leaving, Uncle James suddenly said, "Lucas, take this too. It's from Miss Kathy." He handed over the newly made and carefully packaged dress. Lucas's eyes darkened slightly as he glanced down at it expressionlessly and said flatly, "Got it, Kathy. Who is she?" After hearing those two words, Lucas fell completely silent, as if dragged into the depths of the sea. His body tangled with damp, fishy seaweed, he struggled desperately, only to be pulled deeper by invisible shackles. The setting sun sank into the dark green mountains, its crimson afterglow resting on his shoulders. In Lucas's eyes, I saw patches of rust-like sorrow. Soon, I couldn't help but grieve as well. I nestled obediently in Lucas's shirt pocket, nudging him with my head and whimpering softly, "What's wrong with you?" Lucas curled his lips into a smile that looked even more pitiful than crying. "Good girl, I'm fine." I asked the system, "Who is Kathy?" The system's reply was vague. "For her, Lucas can never refuse." Before returning to the manor, Lucas unusually stuffed me into his backpack. He handed the freshly bought egg tarts into my arms and instructed me, "Be good and eat your sweets." He pinched my cheeks. "Be good and don't make a sound, understand?" I nodded blankly. I watched eagerly as Lucas slowly zipped up the bag, leaving a small gap on the side for me to breathe through. In the cramped and narrow space, I seemed to catch the damp, oppressive air that precedes a storm, humid, dark. It pressed down until one could hardly breathe, unaware of how long I had been in this gloomy, lifeless space. A clear, melodious voice, like that of a nightingale, suddenly rang out. "Lucas, why did you take so long to get here? You were supposed to wag your tail like a dog at the manor gate to welcome me back." Arrogant and condescending, with an air of superiority, as if Lucas were her possession. Anger surged within me as I instantly recognized the owner of that voice. "That Kathy," Lucas answered irrelevantly. "Uncle James asked me to bring this back." "I'm asking you a question." Kathy's voice grew sharp and shrill, like nails scraping against glass, producing a piercing sound. Suddenly, Lucas was shoved hard by someone. Inside the bag, I was also thrown into disarray along with the others. Through the narrow gap of the zipper, I cautiously peered outside. Under the tranquil moonlight, I saw a twisted, eerie face. Kathy's face, having suffered some unknown injury, had been shaved away by 2/3, the remaining flesh curled outward, caught between human and dragon, especially now that she was angry. Her face had become even more ferocious. Lucas's belongings were all snatched away by Kathy and violently thrown to the ground, but even that didn't seem enough to vent her rage. Frantically, she stomped on them repeatedly. The delicate dress became filthy, and along with it, the little cake Lucas had bought for me was trampled into the dirt. "Why are you looking at me like that? Why are you looking at me with such eyes?" Kathy stopped moving and instead glared fiercely at Lucas, cold, gloomy, and filled with malice. She stepped forward one by one, finally stopping beside Lucas. "Wait, is there something in your bag? I smell something strange." Without waiting for Lucas to answer, Kathy reached out directly to unzip the backpack. Lucas grabbed her wrist and said in a deep voice, "Just a bird, is that so?" Kathy flashed a malicious smile. "Let me play with it." Lucas remained silent, his refusal unspoken. This side of Lucas only fueled Kathy's resentment further. She took a step forward, raising her other hand and striking Lucas hard across the face. Her sharp nails left several bloody scratches on his cheek. "You were just sent here to be my toy, why won't you listen to me?" Kathy smiled eerily. "Disobedient things must be punished." I don't know what she did, but dark red runes suddenly appeared on Lucas's neck. The veins on Lucas's temples bulged as he took a step back and knelt on one knee. As if enduring immense pain, she sneered, "Get lost." By the time we returned to that shabby little hut, Lucas's face had turned as pale as paper, drenched in sweat from the pain, looking as if he'd just been pulled out of water. Lucas unzipped the bag and gently cradled me in his palm. I could smell the strong scent of blood on him, Yet Lucas seemed completely unfazed. His cool thumb lightly brushed against my cheek. "Why are you crying? Scared?" I shook my head. He forced a light-hearted laugh. "Feeling sorry for your little snacks." "That's not it at all. Feeling suffocated." "Grr, stupid dragon." Lucas sighed softly, lowering his head to gently press his forehead against mine. "I'm sorry. I just didn't want you to see that side of me." In the middle of the night, Lucas developed a high fever. He curled up, too weak to maintain his human form any longer. Dark red runes covered his entire body like spider silk, flickering faintly with a red glow in the darkness. After scaling mountains and crossing valleys, to finally reach Lucas, I tiptoed and placed a damp tissue on his forehead. Lucas's body was frighteningly hot to the touch, even his breath carried an alarming heat. The wet wipe placed on his forehead dried up in no time. I felt a pang of regret for not bringing more with me, and as I got closer, I was horrified to discover that the red runes, spiderweb-like and faintly glowing in the dark, had already sliced through his tough scales and seared into his flesh. Blood was slowly seeping out. His injuries were far more severe than I had imagined. At that moment, Lucas suddenly opened his eyes. His gaze was fierce and menacing, his head raised, mouth slightly open to reveal sharp fangs. Assuming an aggressive stance, I was utterly terrified. Fortunately, upon realizing it was me, Lucas's eyes immediately softened. He moved his head to my side, nuzzling me affectionately. "What's wrong?" "Arf arf arf, you have a fever, hungry again." Roar. "I don't love eating that much, do I?" A wet wipe fell from Lucas's forehead. He glanced at it in slight surprise, then understood. "Silly little thing, go to sleep now, and by tomorrow you'll feel better." But Lucas nuzzled his head into my embrace and wrapped his dragon claws around me. "Be good." With a long sigh, I compromised and hugged Lucas's hard dragon head. Falling asleep with him, in my drowsy state, I heard, ding. Lucas's affection plus 20, "Congratulations, host, you have unlocked the dragon language skill." In the early morning, I was awakened by the tempting aroma of Lucas's century egg and lean pork congee. Bleary-eyed, I sat up in bed, my hair as messy as a bird's nest, and stared greedily at Lucas. He placed the congee on the wooden table and looked at me with amusement. "Woken up by hunger?" I nodded with a growling stomach. The morning sunlight gently enveloped Lucas's face, fresh from the shower. His hair was still damp, droplets clinging to the ends. He wore a black shirt with the collar open, revealing delicate collarbones beneath. By now, his complexion had improved significantly, no longer as deathly pale as it had been the night before. Only faint, shallow lines remained on his jade-white skin. True to his word, his wounds had healed considerably. I secretly marveled at Lucas's astonishing healing ability. But more than that, I felt genuine happiness from the bottom of my heart. Thinking about the new skill I had just acquired, I grew restless with excitement. Awkwardly, I tried calling his name in Lucas's language. "Lucas, Lucas, what are you shouting?" Lucas shuddered, his eyes filled with disbelief. After the first time, the second time became much easier. I smiled at him and called out again, "Lucas." Lucas looked at me with great interest, his crimson eyes gleaming. "You understand what I'm saying, don't you?" I raised my head and nodded proudly. "What else can you say?" I thought for a moment and said to him, "Hungry." He curled his index finger and gently flicked my forehead. Little glutton. 3 days later, Uncle James finished making the clothes, and Lucas and I went to the tailor shop as promised. Staring at those sets of Princess Pink dragon outfits, I was left speechless. Lucas pinched my cheek. "Want to try them on?" His eyes sparkled with tiny glimmers, looking quite expectant. Sigh. "All right then." I picked out my favorite one from inside and happily ran to the wooden box prepared for me to change. The wooden box even had a thoughtful round mirror placed inside. The outfit had a pair of small white wings on the back, and a pink tail swayed behind me, looking left and right. I surprisingly thought it looked quite nice. I flicked my little tail, planning to show off in front of Lucas, but unexpectedly overheard him deliberately lowering his voice to ask, "Uncle James, about the thing I asked you to do." The two stood with their backs to me in front of the shop window, the rain pattering against the glass, their conversation somewhat muffled. Seeing Uncle James shake his head, Lucas's voice grew somewhat despondent. "Is that so? Can't we find her clan?" I froze. Lucas once asked me if I couldn't find my way home. Turns out, he's been keeping track for me all along. In the prolonged silence, Uncle James let out a soft sigh. His aged voice carried sympathy, regret, and helplessness. Lucas, you must understand that the curse has become part of your body. If we forcibly remove it, you will also. I know. Lucas's voice was unusually calm. In SL City, not every dragon is born free. His tone was cool, devoid of any emotional fluctuation. Yet it somehow felt unbearably lonely. He said, I'm not sad, but I could tell that Lucas was extremely sad inside. Lucas, hearing my voice, Lucas turned around. I spun around joyfully in front of him. Now I'm a dragon too. Lucas silently stared at me for a moment before finally curling his lips into a lazy smile. Is that so? He tapped the 2 dragon horns on my hat and teased. Then they must be the weakest and easiest to bully. I asked him, do you want to bully me? I'll protect you. A glimmer of amusement danced in his eyes. Lucas was gentle, those obscure and somber emotions hidden away behind him. I tugged at his index finger and whispered mysteriously, Lucas, lean in, I have a secret to tell you. He obligingly bent down and asked softly, what do you want to tell me? I leaned close to his ear and murmured, I like you so much. You're the best dragon I've ever met. His crimson pupils contracted slightly as a blush spread from the tip of Lucas's ears to their entirety. He glanced at me helplessly before raising his dragon claw to gently flick my forehead. Silly human, do you even know what like means before spouting nonsense? At the same time, a notification sound echoed in my mind. Ding, Lucas's affection +10, but that didn't matter anymore. I held Lucas's face in my hands and planted a loud kiss on the corner of his lips. It means I'm willing to give you all the snacks I've been hoarding. The osmanthus tree by the window was in full bloom. And Lucas picked the flowers, washed them, and made me many delicious little treats. Osmanthus wine glutinous rice balls, osmanthus pastries, osmanthus cakes, osmanthus honey brew. I marveled at how there could be such a wonderful dragon in this world. I scooped another small glutinous rice ball with my spoon and popped it into my mouth. Sweet but not cloying, light and refreshing, the most delicious thing I've ever tasted. Just as I was basking in happiness, Lucas, who was tidying up nearby, shot me a glare. He warned me sternly, no more eating. I stared at him with pitiful eyes. Puppy eyes won't work, he said, poking my round belly with his fingertip. Trying to burst yourself, pinching the extra flesh on my body. I felt like crying but had no tears. Lucas's cooking was too good and had made me gain so much weight. Glancing at the luggage Lucas had packed for me, I tugged at his sleeve and asked, when will you come to pick me up? His long lashes lowered, concealing the emotions in his eyes. After a long silence, he finally spoke slowly, as soon as possible. How soon is, as soon as possible? I felt a bit sad. Was it because I didn't hide well enough that day? That's why you're sending me to Uncle James's shop. One day, Kathy barged into Lucas's room without warning, and she almost found me. During this time, she often bossed Lucas around, afraid I'd be discovered. Lucas had no choice but to leave me alone in the room. Lucas bent down and placed a kiss on top of my head. He smoothed my slightly tousled hair, but his gaze drifted past me into the distance. Partly, yes. After a pause, Lucas continued, when I was a child, I once kept a bird. I loved it dearly, but Kathy hated it. Before I could set it free, it fell into Kathy's hands. Later, I buried it in the soil. Over time, it would slowly decay, and perhaps one day, even its bones would dissolve into the earth, leaving nothing behind. I could never hear it sing for me again. This time, Lucas's focus gradually returned to me, his eyes brimming with tenderness and affection like surging waves, but just as quickly, he forced it all back under control. He closed his eyes and planted a kiss on my forehead. He murmured, to me, you're more than just a bird. I'm scared. As for other reasons, Lucas didn't want to elaborate. I cupped Lucas's chin and, catching him off guard, lightly kissed his cool lips. Then you must remember to come back for me. Lucas was terrified. He stumbled backwards several steps, his body slamming hard against the bookshelf. This time, it wasn't just his ears. His entire face turned red. He pressed the back of his hand to his lips, yet his eyes sparkled brightly. The moment their gazes met, Lucas averted his eyes like a startled, bristling cat, promising, I will. You must wait obediently. Surprisingly, the first one I encountered wasn't Lucas, but a furious Leo. Leo's eyes were red at the corners, his teeth clenched, and his cheeks slightly puffed. He glared at me with a ferocious look, as if he wanted to devour me in one bite. Uncle James happened to be out on business and wasn't in the shop. Without saying much, he grabbed me with one claw and strode away. I struggled and shouted angrily, "What are you doing?" Money ran over and barked furiously at him, but he kicked it away, cursing, "Get lost, stupid dog." The next moment, Leo's hostile gaze fixed firmly on me, his fingers tightened forcefully, squeezing me until I could barely breathe. "Do you want to see Lucas? Go see how badly you've ruined him." My heart skipped a beat, a chill ran down my spine, and immense fear surged from the depths of my heart. What did he mean by, how badly I ruined him? My attempt to pry his fingers froze, and I hurriedly asked, "What do you mean?" He curled his lips into a smirk and scoffed, "What do I mean? Go see for yourself." Although Leo didn't like me, he still patiently told me many things about SL City and Lucas. SL City is a city-state of dragons, yet here exists beings who stand above dragons, and Chandler is one of them. He is one of the most powerful spellcasters in SL City. Both Lucas and Leo grew up under Chandler's care. They were abandoned as children, and the spells on their bodies have existed for as long as they can remember. Leo said that even the slightest disobedience or disrespect toward their master would result in heart-wrenching, bone-breaking agony, making life unbearable. Rather than calling them dragons, it would be more accurate to say they were merely the private possessions of the powerful. Chandler ran an underground dragon fighting arena, a place where high-class dragons sought amusement. The sight of dragons tearing and battling each other was their favorite entertainment. The scent of blood excited them. They gambled there, not just with money, but also with the hearts of dragons. The defeated dragon would have its heart carved out and presented to the victor's master. I was bought a few years ago and finally left that hellhole. My current master treats me well. And life isn't too bad now. Leo's eyes darkened slightly, his voice tinged with hoarseness. Lucas, on the other hand, is different. Lucas was highly capable, having resolved many thorny issues for Chandler, earning his deep trust. Another reason was that Kathy liked him, and Chandler had always doted on this daughter, who was born with congenital defects due to being of mixed race. The stench of blood mingled with the damp, earthy smell was almost nauseating. The narrow corridor was dimly lit by oil lamps placed every few meters on the stone walls. The dim light made the path seem endless, as if it had no end. Before infiltrating this underground prison, Leo had warned me not to look around. He was right, because the dragons locked in the cells on either side of the corridor all bore horrifying, gruesome wounds without exception. My mind went numb, refusing to imagine what Lucas might look like if he were here too. Leo led me for a long time. And just as we neared the end of the corridor, he finally came to a stop. He stopped in front of a prison cell and said, "Lucas is inside." The dim torchlight on the rocky walls cast flickering shadows, revealing a black dragon curled up, its body covered in wounds. The dragon's scales were torn outward, flesh gaping open, with some bite marks so deep the bone was visible. At that moment, its head drooped weakly on the ground, and with each rise and fall of its chest, fresh blood continued to seep out. The silver-white chains were slender, gleaming with a cold light, firmly fastened around his neck. Leo's previous words echoed repeatedly in his mind. Only the lowest of dragons are chained like livestock, then sent to the dragon fighting arena to tear and bite. Lowly, livestock. I could never understand why such words would be associated with Lucas. He was clearly better than the moon in the sky. A sharp pain surged from where my heart was, and I felt almost suffocated. Leo crouched down, kneeling on one knee. "Lucas." Seeing no response from Lucas, he called out again. This time Lucas twitched his ears, wearily lifting his eyelids. "What are you here for?" Leo was visibly agitated, his voice trembling noticeably by the end of his speech. "I don't understand. Since you've already managed to get out of here, why are you letting yourself fall back in? It's just a talking pet. Why are you going to such lengths for it?" Lucas turned his head slightly and said calmly, "Go back, Lucas." Leo roared angrily, stubbornly glaring at Lucas. The two stood in silent confrontation, until ultimately Lucas's heart softened and he yielded. "My little pet was seen, and they want me to hand her over." I refused. That's it, casual and indifferent. He didn't seem to be talking about his own affairs at all. and at this moment, I finally understood what Leo meant by ruined by me. Leo lowered his head, revealing a strange expression. But I brought her here, didn't I? Why did you bring her here? Send the human back. Leo turned a blind eye and a deaf ear. He set me down and walked away without a word, his final utterance like a sigh, scattered into the air and soon vanished without a trace. Lucas, if you can't bring yourself to do it, I'll make this decision for you. The chains rattled violently as Lucas thrashed, the scales on his neck being scraped raw and soon torn to bloody flesh. I sniffled and called out, Lucas. Lucas froze abruptly, and the next second, the entire dragon vanished into the darkness. The first time I saw him so vulnerable, his tail curled around his front, wings slightly spread, hiding his head within them. Lucas was trembling lightly, even his voice quivering as he pleaded, don't come closer, and don't look at me. You'll be scared. He's so foolish. Why would I be afraid? Step by step, I walked into the darkness, boldly and domineeringly lifting his wings, reaching out to embrace his head. I'm not scared at all. I only feel sorry for you, silly dragon. My face felt warm. Oh, turns out a certain dragon was crying quite shamelessly. I patted his head to comfort him. Don't be afraid, don't be afraid. Chandler soon arrived, dressed in luxurious robes. He stood outside the prison cell, his silver white hair cascading freely, and his pale blue eyes resembling a pure, unblemished sky. He appeared very young and was unbelievably beautiful, making it hard to associate him with the cruel and ruthless spellcaster Leo had described. Lucas spread his wings, arching his back and tilting his head slightly backward, a posture of aggression and hostility. He shielded me behind him, blocking Chandler's probing gaze directed at me. But Chandler wasn't as easy to fool as Kathy. He completely ignored Lucas, slightly raising his hand to draw a few strokes in the air. The spell he cast passed right through Lucas and landed precisely on me. Lucas was terrified. He turned around abruptly and carefully examined me from head to toe. Then, under Lucas's astonished gaze, I began to grow bit by bit, eventually reaching the same size as the dragons in this world. Chandler cast a cold glance at Lucas and said expressionlessly, Lucas, you can leave now. There was no way Lucas would leave. He asked, what are you going to do? Chandler didn't answer. He shrugged, expressing regret that Lucas refused to leave. Fine, suit yourself. In the cold, damp prison cell, Lucas and I stood on opposite sides, as if separated by a vast galaxy. I inched a little closer to him, and Lucas scooted back a bit. Finally, with no more room to retreat, he squeezed himself into the narrow corner, looking utterly ridiculous. I reached out to touch the tip of his tail, and it instantly flicked away. I said, I'm so cold. Lucas paused for a moment, then slowly extended his tail toward me again. Lucas, you can drape it over your stomach. Since Lucas said so, I actually grabbed his tail without hesitation and unceremoniously laid it over my belly. Gotta say, it was surprisingly warm. The tail gently curled around my waist. When I stroked it, it shyly trembled a little. I can't figure out what Chandler is up to, nor do I know how many more tomorrows I'll have with Lucas. But now that I've finally grown bigger, wouldn't it be a shame not to seize this opportunity? I gently stroked Lucas's tail, and when he was so comfortable that he started purring without any guard, I pounced into his arms like a hungry tiger. Lucas let out a muffled groan, startling me into freezing. I quickly asked, I'm sorry, did I touch your wound? The corner was dimly lit, and with Lucas being dark as well, I could barely make out any of his expressions except for a pair of clear red eyes. I sensed Lucas shaking his head slightly, feeling slightly relieved. I wrapped my arms around Lucas's neck like a rogue. It's too cold. Let's warm up like this. Lucas sighed softly but ultimately gave in. The once rigid dragon body gradually relaxed, with one claw resting on my waist as he nuzzled me affectionately with his head, asking softly, not afraid? I planted a loud kiss on his chin, smacking my lips. Not at all. At worst, we'll die together. Oh, and remember to be human in your next life and come marry me. Lucas rested his head on top of mine, responding after a long pause in a muffled voice. His tail, visible in the dim light, swayed gently back and forth, while the dragon body wrapped around me like a clam shell grew even warmer. I don't know how much time had passed before Chandler came again. This time, I finally understood his purpose. His usually frosty face unexpectedly flickered with emotion, his expression excited, and the way he looked at me carried a strange thrill. Chandler opened the cell door and stepped inside one step at a time, muttering to himself, "It really is just as the books recorded, no backlash from the spells, will be the perfect vessel." Chandler tilted his head and chuckled softly, "Kathy, you won't have any more flaws, how laughable. So they want that ugly freak Kathy to possess my body." I raised an eyebrow at him. "I can cooperate with you, but you have to release Lucas." Chandler seemed to be in a good mood and agreed readily, "Sure." The dragon's claw wrapped around my waist suddenly tightened, and Lucas glared at me fiercely. "I'm not leaving." He sounded a bit aggrieved. "Do you remember what you promised me?" Yes, I had promised him that no matter what, we would stay together. I stood with hands on my hips, head held high, taunting Chandler, "Get lost. I don't feel like cooperating anymore." "Oh," Chandler smiled faintly, "then don't blame me for taking it myself." Lucas desperately shielded me as the dark red curse on his body flared up again, old wounds reopening before the new ones had even healed. He violently snapped the chain around his neck, the cold metal cutting deep into his flesh, the wound so severe the bone was visible. Struggling to the end, Lucas gradually lost strength. Chandler grabbed him by the neck, threw him aside, and then walked toward me. Unexpectedly, Lucas gritted his teeth and lunged forward again. This time, Lucas shielded me tightly beneath him. Chandler frowned with displeasure, quite persistent. A sword materialized in his hand out of thin air, and without mercy, he thrust it toward Lucas. The blade pierced through Lucas's back, penetrating his heart. Warm blood trickled from the corner of his mouth, then dripped onto me, blooming into crimson flowers. Lucas still held me tightly, gasping as he spoke word by word, "I love you." In my mind, a cold, mechanical voice chimed, "Ding, Lucas's affection +5, the system announced, "Congratulations, host, the affection level of the target has reached its maximum, and you've unexpectedly completed the hidden task of making the target sincerely say, 'I love you.' You can go home now." As soon as the words were spoken, my body began to turn transparent. Terror exploded in Lucas's crimson pupils. He cupped my face with trembling, ice-cold fingertips and asked, "What's happening to you?" His injuries were too severe. As soon as he spoke, fresh blood gushed from his mouth. I wanted to tell Lucas I was fine, but it was as if I had been muted. No sound could escape me. Lucas held me tightly in his arms, his grip so fierce it felt like he wanted to melt me into his very veins. He whispered in my ear, "I'll remember to become human. You must remember to wait for me." I recalled what the system had once said, besides returning to my original world, I could also have one wish granted. I cried, "My wish is for him to come with me." When I opened my eyes again, I had already returned to my original world. Seeing my mother, whom I hadn't seen in so long, I burst into tears. She pinched my cheek. "What are you crying for?" After saying that, she hastily wiped my tears and hurried to fetch a doctor. Seeing me crying my heart out, clinging tightly to the blanket and refusing to let go, even the doctor was taken aback. My mother gently twisted my ear. "How can they examine you like this?" At this moment, a warm, dry large hand landed on my head and gave it a gentle rub. "Silly," I froze, slowly looking up. The doctor removed his mask, revealing the face of my Lucas. After hearing the story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.